Hi, Andrew. Nice to meet you.
How you doing, Tom?
And before we kick off, maybe it'd be good to give yourself an overview of who you are, what you do, and sort of what your sort of day-to-day role is, really.
Sure. So, my name's Andrew. I am a digital consultant, stroke trainer, stroke keynote speaker. So I just essentially just do a lot of research, take my knowledge and deliver it, whether it be a keynote or a training session. Predominantly, I say digital, but that includes multiple things. Over the last few years, generative AI has been a big part of that. But since I've been doing this training since 2009, I would say social media, content marketing has been the two main areas. So that's pretty much what I do. My background before that is I've only worked online. So I come from more of a marketing content creation background. So back in 2001, I was working, moderating chat rooms and forums for the TV show Pop Idol and Liverpool Football Club. I don't support Liverpool, by the way. They paid well. I went with the money, if I'm being honest. And Sony PlayStation and Friends Reunited. Don't know if you remember that site, Friends Reunited. And then I was part of the team to launch Radio 1 Extra. So I was working on radio, producing radio shows for about 4.5 years. And then when I was there, I got poached to start up a small startup, which is this new thing called social media. And in 2006, I was part of the team to launch MySpace in the UK. So, yeah. And then I left MySpace 2009. So I saw the rise and I saw the fall. And then, that's when I started training people from all over the world, all different industries, predominantly marketing and sales, and how to use all of this technology to do X, Y, and Z.
Amazing. So you've been on that journey from sort of like traditional sales through to the social media era now to AI is obviously the big thing at the moment.
Yeah. I've seen it all pretty much. I've seen in the digital world. I've seen things come. I've seen things go. I've seen trends. I've seen things that stayed. And then after a while, you start noticing fundamental things. When it comes to online, understanding that the relationship between marketing and sales now is like this now. It's become more and more, it's closer and closer and closer. And so I've just seen a lot of changes over the years, but now I'm going to contradict myself. And what I mean by that is everything's changed, stroke nothing has changed. Because the reality is, from when I was working at Pop Idol to now, you still need something to sell. You still need to set it somewhere, and you still have to sell it to someone. And that hasn't changed. And as long as there's the internet, as long as there's your business, that will still be the same. But actually, when you break down what has changed, it's just either people's behavior or technology. And they're the two things that pretty much dictate this digital age.
Yeah. I saw a recent post or a recent post you did recently that said that sellers who ignore AI are going to be left behind. So is that something you sort of stand by in terms of, what did you mean by that essentially?
Yeah. I do a lot of training in AI, and I often say to people, you don't have to do AI. But just be aware of what you're up against, because what you're up against are people, if they do it well, that can generate ideas, that can generate content, that can analyze information, reports, whatever it may be, that can summarize stuff, that can optimize stuff, that can be good at research and education, that can get great questions, as well as reformat stuff. So they can take a PDF and turn it into a podcast. They could take a podcast and turn it into an infographic. They could take an infographic and turn it into a sales sheet. That's what you're up against. So I often say to salespeople, you don't have to use it, but just be aware of what you're up against. And if done correctly, you're going to become a super salesperson, really. If you can get all of these down, you can build your own digital AI team, because obviously we work in a sales team, but it can be quite siloed as well. But now you can have your own team. It's just that they're all going to be AI or AI agents.
Yeah. It's being I was in sales myself for 20 years, but your job was to use the tools you had within the company and build that virtual team or virtual tool set to do that, right? And so now then, I guess, thinking along the lines of that then, if you were a modern seller, BDR, enterprise sales rep, are there any go-to tools or things that we should be looking at, right? Revenue leaders should be adopting or using? I think
the main go-to tool is going to be ChatGPT or a large language model. It doesn't have to be ChatGPT. It could be ChatGPT, it could be Claude, it could be Gemini, it could be Perplexity, it could be Copilot. But one of those models that do multiple things. So I could use ChatGPT and ask it multiple things and it can give me multiple answers in different formats as well. So I would say that's going to be your first port of call. Then I would say, and this is what you're going to see, if, for example, you're working sales, you're going to have some form of CRM, rather than go for a new CRM system because it's got AI in it, the vast majority of CRMs now will have AI built in, or they're building it into it now. So I would say just double down on what you're used to using, and then just try and work out how does AI fit within this, rather than just try and start a whole new model. Because what will end up happening is that you'll try and go to a new CRM system. By the time you learn it, the one that you've been using for years, the AI capabilities are in that, and you could have just continued doing that. So I would say your large language model, then your CRM, and then after that, again, people will do different things. Like,
so look at the current tools you have and like learn them properly, like get the most value out of them, rather than just look for the next new shiny AI tool and make the most of what you have first. Learn that.
Yeah, exactly. Make the most of what you have first, and then from there, then you can start looking at, all right, what can fill in the gaps. So right now, let's say, for example, you might want a note taker tool, even though you can get it in like the Office package or whatever package you're using, because it's in Teams. You might turn around and say, I actually want to use one called Fathom or Otter or Fireflies. And that can be my note taker. So when I'm having phone calls with people, it's taking my notes for me, it's summarizing. I can then even train it in a way that it gives me the notes how I like it. And I can even train it in a way that gives me the notes that how I like it, that will then fit nicely into my CRM system. So you can automatically do that. And I know working in sales, one of the annoying things was always having to go and fill out all the information and stuff.
Game change, isn't it? The note taking.
So these things can be automated. And that's a key thing. So what are the key things that you as a salesperson would need, and how you could find that out is just go through your typical day, weeks, what comes up quite a lot, and then work out from there.
Yeah. I guess find something that's taking up a lot of your time, a lot of your energy, like you said, writing the notes, doing the proposal, like find one thing, fix it, and then move on to the next one. Because I think you're very distracted by so many different tools, so many different things you can do, and then you procrastinate type thing, you know?
Exactly. There's so many tools out there and there's always going to be something new. And there's not even going to be some things, it's going to be many things that are new, and you can easily get distracted. So I'm a big fan of picking a few and just going deep in them rather than trying to master 50. You know, you just won't have the time.
So based on that, how do you see the role of a salesperson evolving? You've been doing this 20 years, so have I. Like, it's obviously changed a lot in terms of sales. 20 years ago, it was about educating the customer, presenting what you do, and helping them evaluate different solutions. Obviously, now you can do that at the click of a button with AI. The buyer's got an easier job as well as the seller. So, how do you see that evolving, and where do you see the role of a salesperson evolving?
I think it kind of goes back to what I said, that sales and marketing kind of go hand in hand, in the sense that if I was going to buy something, but if I put myself in your particular target, they are likely to research you. So they're going to go away, they're going to Google you, they're going to put you in ChatGPT, they're going to do all of these things, they're going to research you. Now, you can't control that. You can't stop them doing that, but you can influence what they see. So it's a case of working out, all right, well, where are they looking? What information are they getting about me? And then you can just obviously do that yourself, or you can look at analytics. And then it's a case of saying, how can I make this better? How can I make this more obvious? How can I make this more convincing? And then making sure that how they can contact me is pretty straightforward. Okay, you can book a call here, or you might know me, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn. And then once you go into that bit, then it goes into like how you would normally do. Okay, we booked a call, and then after that, it's just how you do it. So that would be one of the things that I would look at, or definitely things that I would change. As I said, AI can help with a lot of the education, but what it can't do is not going to place, well, it can, but it's not really going to place you in certain places. It's going to give information to the end user based off of what it knows about you, and you can influence that. And that's the key thing that I would say.
Yeah. But what you're saying, I guess, is when the buyer's ready to engage, you as a sales rep need to be there. You need to
be there.
Like we've spent the last 5 or 6 years really focused on the personal branding, the social selling side of things. And some of the guys who work with, it absolutely takes off because they're sharing regularly on LinkedIn, they're building their networks. And then when they do get an opportunity, their buyers are thinking of them over their competitors. And I think it's something that sounds like a bit of a buzzword sometimes, but actually it's absolutely key to this because you need to be there at the right time when they're ready to buy, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like everyone's an expert researcher. You know, when we go to the doctors now, it's a collaboration. We've already Googled our symptoms, etc. So you can't stop people searching you, but as I said, but you can influence what they see. So this is where, as you mentioned, your personal brand plays a big part. When it comes to content that you put out there as a salesperson, we talk about proof stuff, like proof content, but what is your personal content? And when I say personal, again, it's up to you how much you want to put out, but you want to find some affinity. And this is what's going to help stand you out from the robots as well. You want people to say, you like this as well as me, or you're into that, or you're into this. So when you have those conversations with people, it's an easy opener. You know, like every time I go to Newcastle, as soon as I get in a cab, immediately I'll start talking about the football team. And I think if I've gone into 10 cabs, all 10 cabbies are football fans. So immediately you build up that rapport. And that's a lot of what sales is about. Like, that's your personal content. So you've got proof content, you've got personal content, and then you've got other forms of content as well that you can kind of, whether you're demonstrating something, but ultimately you want to be able to create something that people can build an affinity with you and also that personal brand. Because again, depending on the type of sales, so let's assume it's B2B, people kind of buy from people. You know, I don't think that changed. I don't think the robots are going to change that. People will really buy from people. And then that actually is what's going to make us have I wouldn't say an advantage, but that's going to make us differentiate ourselves from AI.
So you think a modern seller now should be focused on their personal brand in the next couple of years? And do you think in 5 years you could have a successful career without using AI or having a personal brand?
I think without using AI, I think it's going to be very, very, very difficult. To be honest, I don't think, unless you go off grid, I think even if you don't want to use AI, it's going to be connected with everything that we do anyway. So that's why I say to people, you might as well, it's a game. You're already on the field. You know, you can walk off the field, but then might as well not work in sales, if I'm being honest, because as I said, this is what you're up against if you don't use it. So if you are on the field and this is a game, you need to work out what are the rules of the game. What game am I going to play? How can I set the game up to win? And this is where understanding AI is going to play a big part. But what I've been saying to thousands of people is that I believe that 2026 is the last year where we're in this golden era of AI. So the golden era is when you go to ChatGPT or whatever platform you use, you don't see ads. You just type something in and you get information back. Also, there's no regulation. Now, some people might say that's a bad thing because look what's happened with Grok and some of the things that's been happening. But the reason why I flip that is who's going to regulate it? You know, do you want the government to regulate it? Not really. Do you want big corporations to regulate it? I'm assuming no. You know, do you want the big tech companies to regulate it? No. So there's going to have to be some form of regulation. So right now there isn't. So obviously I'm assuming everyone here is morally correct and they're not going to do anything bad. So because of that, we can just use it in a way that we would use it. And then the last thing is these platforms are expensive to run. You know, they're going to want their money back, especially when you've got a lot of people who work within the world of finance, financing them, which they want their returns. And now is the time to test. Now's the time to make mistakes. Now's the time to fail multiple times because it's free, most of these things that you can do. Don't do it where it's hardly free because you don't want to be testing when it's costing you money. You want to be testing when it's free. And now is the time. So I think these three things is going to play a very big part. But I think we've got 10 months and then things will change. Yeah.
So it will change in terms of more regulation, more ads, more
regulation. Yeah. Ads, which means you question the answers to use stuff you're going to have to pay. You know, at the moment obviously there will be free models, but the free models are going to be quite a way behind the paid for models. Yeah. So will you be getting the best out of it? So where everyone else who'll be using the paid for ones, it's not like a learning curve where it'll go like that and then they catch up. They're going to go like that, but because they got AI, their learning is just going to continue going up. And if you're playing catch up here, eventually it's going to be very costly and time Like it would take a lot of time. So yeah, they're the things that I worry for people if they're not on it already.
And how are you seeing like sales teams do this as well? Because a lot of people I'm speaking to, obviously the organization want to roll out, a standardized process and tools that they can use, but it's like you said, it's a bit of a free for all. Like a sales rep could use any tool, any language model and do their own thing. Are you starting to see people standardize on certain tools and technologies or?
Yeah, I think that it needs to be depending on who you're working for. So AI policies are becoming quite a big thing, because of data breaches, because of privacy, especially within sales. It's trying to work out what's the safest model to use, whether you use an enterprise version of Copilot. That seems to be the most popular one at the moment. I think it's connected to do with Outlook. Or you want to build your own large language model, because you can obviously build your own large language model, which means that you keep everything like in a safer place. That's usually what's holding a lot of people back. The other thing that holds people back is almost the opposite end, where you get leaders coming up with amazing ideas and they're like full of AI, and then they just try and do everything at once with the attitude of let's just throw a whole bunch of stuff at the wall and see what like sticks. But by doing that, it can create confusion. So it's almost like the opposite. And what ends up happening is that I'm used to doing this particular way. Now you want me to do this way. And then 3 weeks later, now you want me to use this tool. And then a month later, now you want me to try something else. And then eventually I'm not getting anywhere. And as a salesperson, commission plays a big part, because now you're messing with my money. So there's that as well. So that's what I'm kind of seeing. And then you've got the middle ground, which is, yes, we're open to AI. Yes, we're going to upskill the team, but let's upskill it based on a few things. So they want almost everyone to kind of go up like this way. So we're kind of going, there's still a lot of people in the, we know what it is, but how can we use it stage? And then now I notice from a training point of view, it's a lot more practical uses of it. And with sales, it's a case of saying, all right, well, I still want to be human. I still want to be doing the selling. That's what I enjoy. That's what I'm good at. How can I use it to help analyze stuff? How can I make it to better decisions? How can I improve my sales pitch? How can I research information about the client before I speak to them? And that's where you're starting to see. So kind of goes back to those 8 things that I mentioned, what people are using AI for. It's like, how do I get good in each of those things?
Yeah, I think we've seen a bit of a shift towards that as well. Obviously, when we founded True Leads, it was very much, how can we automate things and scale your activity. But I think now with AI, that can actually dilute your message more. But it's about using AI in the background to do your research, your data, all the sort of heavy lifting. But actually the human element of being yourself and standing out your personal brand or picking up the phone actually becomes super valuable nowadays. But I think you can get easily distracted by setting up too many AI flows and automations that actually dilutes what you're doing. If you know
exactly. Everyone's going crazy about AI agents or workflows and automation, and then we go a bit too crazy on it, and then you're thinking, so what? Is this really saving me time? Or it's only saving me a little bit of time. It's not worth the hassle. I might as well focus on something else. So that's the thing. However, on the flip side, sometimes you do need to test that in order to know what not to do. So it's like, all right, cool. We've done that. We've seen what it does. Let's not do it. Or we've done that. It's not ready just yet. But because we know the process, when the tool is ready, the technology is caught up to what we were actually thinking, we're in a good place to go. So there's no right or wrong answer. Everyone's just kind of finding out their ways, and ultimately, how can I make it most relevant to me? That's pretty much what I'm seeing.
And you mentioned at the start around like the sales and marketing come really close together now. So what role do you see in sort of content-led marketing? Obviously, you've been doing this for a long time, but is that still going to play a really big part in this, or is it going to be more around training these language models to recommend certain products and services, or is the social media, the content still really important?
I think it's all three. When you talk about personal branding, obviously with sales, it's like, all right, personal branding, but that's something that marketers have been doing for years. So that's what I mean by it's getting closer and closer, because now it's a case of saying, all right, well, people connect with me on LinkedIn. How can I use Sales Navigator on LinkedIn? Or how can I put content out there? How can I start messaging people? And like all of these things that marketers and sales people have been doing for years, but a lot of it is the marketing side of things, like posting content. So that's what I mean by it's getting closer and closer. Even if you've got obviously search, SEO, that's a big thing, or AdWords, that's a big thing. And then GEO, so the generative engine optimizations. How can we be seen? These are all marketing functions that salespeople are now starting to look at and say, right, can I influence this, or can I get to know this, or how can it help me? So that's what I mean by it's getting closer and closer. And now marketing, some of their metrics are based on sales metrics. And sometimes I'm seeing a lot of sales teams, some of their metrics are based on marketing metrics. Did you post today? How many people did you connect with on LinkedIn? Did you so that's why it's becoming more and more, I wouldn't say blurred, but because of data being such a big part across both, that's what you're seeing, that connection where marketing before, a lot of it was about branding. Okay, what color should a website be, or why is the connect with us button purple instead of red, and like what goes above the fold, and like all of these things. Now it's very data driven. How many people clicked on this, which could lead to this, which could lead to leads, which could lead to sales, which could,
Yeah, and I guess also that links into the early funnel development, like the MQLs, events, webinars, like all that early funnel activity, which every sales team needs, but more and more that's being automated in AI. So do you sort of see that role disappearing with AI, like the business development side of things, and the more senior people, or is it again?
I think if we look at the now, and let's say the next 18 months, if you had to buy something and it was a webinar and it wasn't a human talking, it was a robot, would that put you off?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing, what I find. I think people still be like, yeah, it's put me off. It's a robot speaking. I know you're using AI. That means you probably don't, if you can't even be bothered to sit on a webinar for half an hour with us, like, are you really going to look after us? Are you going to start automating and that there is, the digital world is split between behavior and technology, which is another way of saying human psychology and data and logic. In the digital, we go too much towards the technology, the logical side, that side, but they miss the human side. And I think we need to understand that it's a balance. It's a balance of both. Sales are very much data driven. Marketing traditionally is very much behavior driven. But actually, if you just stick with behavior and don't go to logic, logic and data, you're not going to sell anything. You just look pretty. Where if you just stick with logic and don't go to behavior, you're not really going to sell much because you're always selling. You're just, it's too much of a hard sell. Yeah. So it's the middle ground. And that's why I talk about it being like that. And if you can find that balance, that's where I'm seeing the win is right now. Yeah. So it still goes back to what you said, the webinars, the event pages, all of this, but you can automate a lot of that. But the connection bit with the human, still keep it human. That's so important.
Well, you see these big companies like Salesforce, they're still hiring lots of salespeople, right? Like that's still a very key role, but obviously they're building agents to help you with the early funnel pipeline as well. So it's still, a growing market, a growing industry, but it's a different role than it was 5-10 years ago, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think it ultimately goes down to this. If I bought something off of you and you was very much into AI and it went wrong, I'm not going to say to you, don't worry, Tom, I know it's ChatGPT's fault. Why it didn't work. I'm going to say, Tom, what's up? Like, what's going on here? Like, you're the one that's responsible. You sold me this. I've spent this much money with you. So as long as there's accountability, and as long as we live in a blame culture, which I can never see that ever changing, there's always going to be room for humans. So where does the buck stop? And usually salespeople are the first put the front of line. Even though they might not be delivering on what they're selling, you're my contact. Yes, you've got account managers and things like that. But ultimately, you sold me it. I gave my money to you. I trusted you. So as long as that relationship is still there, then I think that's going to play a very, very big part. So Salesforce still hiring a lot of people. I think a lot of that is going to be down to the accountability. And also, when you read stuff in the newspapers, you might not believe this. I still think it's still quite a way before AI starts automating all jobs because of accountability and because of the cost. And you don't want to risk it just yet. A lot of companies don't want to make that risk. So it's going to be more of a slow process. I don't think that I read stuff is like next year, everything's going to be like robots taking over. It's not going to be that way.
A lot of hype, doom and gloom and podcasts around all that sort of things, but it's probably a more balanced approach, as you're saying, isn't it? A bit of a mixture of both. But
yeah, because I think a lot of the people who say it are very technological people. And I've always said it's a mixture of both. I really do think it's a mixture of both.
So you don't see there ever being a time where, an AI agent could do the full sales cycle then in terms of outreach, booking a meeting, doing a demo, closing a deal. There's always going to be a role for a salesperson, yeah?
No, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. I do think there will be a time where that happens. I just don't think it will be just yet. But yeah, to be honest, it's inevitable, which then goes down to the question, what is a salesperson? And the keyword being person there. Does the role change? And that's what I think we're gonna see. Yeah. It might be a case of the robot takes the whole funnel, but still that accountability factor kicks in. That might be the case. But there's still going to be a lot of people that will say, I don't want to buy from a robot. I want to buy from a human. I want to look you in your eye when I'm asking you certain questions. I want to, do we have rapport? Because unless you've got such a unique offering that you don't have any competition, those things that people sell are roughly the same. That's why you have competitors. So if I went with this CRM over another CRM, I might prefer this one's the functionality of it or just the interface. But generally speaking, it does the same thing, generally. So then it's a case of, why did I go with this one over that one? And sometimes it goes down to, I just like the person. I just like the team. Yeah. I've worked with a lot of talent, especially in the music industry days. And sometimes the people that I would be working with more is not necessarily the best singer. It's the person I just kind of like, or was the easiest to work with and was friendly, and they answered my calls, and they didn't. Every time I asked them a question, there wasn't an issue. That still plays a big part.
Yeah, especially in enterprise B2B, it's guiding the buyer through the journey, isn't it?
Yeah,
helping them buy the solution, which is half the job, isn't it? So
yeah, customer service is going to play a huge part, because one thing that AI is showing me is that it increases my blood pressure. So when I get annoyed with it, I swear at it, I say all the worst things to it, and it just is passive aggressive back to me. I'm sorry you want to do this, but let's do it this way. It's if you had a robot being customers, you see it now. One of the most popular things I put into live chat is speak to a person, because I want to speak to a person, not a robot. Yeah. So I think customer service is going to play a huge part moving forward.
Yeah,
huge part.
Again, I think it's already it's gone sort of one way where companies are trying to automate everything, and then it's very quickly gone back. And actually, people want your unique value proposition is actually yourself in the customer service and sales. I think it's gone back to that.
Yeah, personal.
So what's the biggest question you get asked? And you do a lot of speaking, you do a lot of conferences. I know you've been traveling the last few weeks. What's the biggest questions you get asked at the moment in terms of this topic?
I would say the biggest question is, what is AI's impact to the environment? I get that almost every single session. A lot of it is job safety. From a positive point of view, a lot of it still goes down to, what's the best tool to use for this? What's the best tools to use for that? And then depending on who I'm training. So if it's leadership, it's very much strategic. How can we implement this safely? What about privacy issues? How do we teach the team? How do we upskill the team? Do we just work on these people first? Do we these more strategic questions? So because I train so many different audiences and it varies, it's just so random, when it comes to variations. I wouldn't necessarily say there's one question that I get more than others. It's more a trend of questions that kind of fit within environmental impact, privacy and safety, tools, focus, things like that.
Yeah, I think one of the things we get asked is obviously around the job losses, and I think it's it's a balance between companies obviously want people to embrace AI, but then people don't want to embrace it too much because they might get themselves out of a job. If you know what I mean. So it's that balance, isn't it? It's sort of, people want to hire people that are really good, know how to use the tools, but not too much, because it's job. So how do you see that going? Is that a valid concern for?
Oh yeah, I think it's definitely a valid concern. You don't want to obviously push yourself out of a job. Again, goes back to the accountability plays a big part. Also, I'm seeing from leadership, their thoughts on it is different to obviously staff. Leaders are very much like, look, I've got my target, and if AI is going to help me achieve them, then we need to be all in. Most leaders I find are very much into AI. They want to use it. They don't want to be left behind. When it comes to, let's say, the staff, and that might be the sales team, it is a worry. However, I do think people embrace it as well. I find more people probably embrace it, or actually most people realize the inevitable has happened. You know, it's not going anywhere. Trillions of dollars have already been invested in this. When you're seeing some of the biggest companies in the world completely U-turn a few years ago and go, right, AI. We're not going to do virtual reality glasses and VR glasses. We're going to focus on AI and come back to that. Yeah. So when you start seeing things like that, I've always said follow the money, because that kind of dictates pretty much the market. So I think a lot of people realize that this isn't going anywhere. So how am I going to use it to my advantage? Whether they phrase it that way or not, it obviously changes. But I think just generally people are thinking, you know what, I need to get my head around this, because I might be out of a job. Yeah. Because it's the saying, AI won't take your job. People who use AI will take your job. And that's I've heard that years ago, and I still believe it's very, very true.
Yeah. So on that then, I guess to sort of wrap things up is you mentioned earlier, as a salesperson myself, you're always very focused on the revenue, right? Your goals, your targets, that, and I'd be thinking, right, I want to use AI to be successful, but I don't want it to distract me from doing my job, which is closing deals. So are there any practical tips or tools that you would say every salesperson needs to use right now to help them hit their target this year?
I would say the number one thing that comes to mind is train the model. So every large language model can be trained based on what you want it to do. So for example, if I wanted to analyze reports quickly, I can go to a chat and I can say, and then you can start the prompt with this, from now on, and then say whatever you want. I want you to analyze it as if I want you to analyze this information, and it has to go to my director. I want you to summarize this and it has to go to my boss. What are the 5 or 6 key points that they would be interested in that will move the needle forward? Something like that. But start it with from now on. And then what will happen is every time you go to that chat, whatever you put in that chat, it's going to focus on 5 or 6 points that you asked it, as if it has to go to your boss. If you had to do, okay, I need to do social media. What's the key thing about social media? Getting someone's attention first. All right, what headline or what wording should I say right at the beginning to make people say, tell me more? Okay, I'm not good at that because I'm not a copywriter, but let me train a chat and I'll give it examples what I think success looks like. So from now on, in this particular chat, anything that I write, so I can just speak normally and it will tweak it in a way or optimize it in a way that will be a good headline for whatever post I'm putting on LinkedIn or an email. So I would say the number one thing for people to do is train the model. And again, I could spend a whole day just talking about training the models, but these are the key things that's going to make
it doesn't really matter what model, just pick one.
Doesn't matter. Yeah. For the level that we want to use it on, it doesn't matter. Unless you want to get into coding and things like that, then you might say, I'll go for this model over that one. But generally speaking, if you train the model, they're all pretty as good as each other. Some might, for example, Perplexity is better at answering questions and research. Someone like ChatGPT is probably better at multimodal stuff, so not just text, images and all of that, where Claude is a better writer. Just people find it just creates it so it doesn't sound like a robot as much. But with good training, or decent training, not even good, decent training, they're all as good as each other.
Yeah. I think it's quite important as well, isn't it? Because our salespeople obviously have happy ears, don't they? They'd like to, hear the good stuff coming out. But ChatGPT, for example, always tells you what you want to hear sometimes. So you need prompts to sort of guide it.
So, exactly. And that's key.
Yeah, awesome. So I guess just to wrap things up, then you do this a lot. You travel the world. You do a lot of speaking. Where can people find you and get hold of you if they ever want to, get sort of training from you?
The best place is to my website, so andrewmilesdavis.com. So Davis spelled Davis. There you can see me on LinkedIn, or you can just go into LinkedIn, go to linkedin.com/in/Andrew M for Miles Davis. What you'll get from the website and my LinkedIn is you'll get some of the other resources that I do. So I do a daily podcast. It's only 10 minutes a day, but I've been doing this since 2023. And in fact, very, very soon, I'm going to be doing my 600th episode. So I've been doing it for a while, and it's just what's been going on in the world of AI that day. So it's a mixture of news, tools, prompts, what I'm annoyed about. So every day is just focused on one particular subject. So I do that. I have a WhatsApp group where, it's more of a broadcast list. So every day I post 3 or 4 news articles, what's been going on in AI. But again, not the techie stuff. Like, I don't care about how much money Claude raised, or I don't care what goes on under the hood of ChatGPT and stuff. It's just more stuff that we would be interested in.
Real practical.
Yeah, just practical stuff, or just, I didn't realize you can now do this.
Yeah.
So they're the main 2 things that I do. But on my website, you have other resources. Like, I've got an AI starter toolkit, which is the kind of just tools that you would like to start with. Would go into every Wednesday or every other Wednesday, I go live on Zoom. And it's just a training session. There's no sales pitch or anything. I'm not selling anything. It's just a way to help people. So I've been doing that for about just over 6 months now. And yeah, that's going really well. Got a nice little community there. So yeah, they're the main things. But my website, you can pretty much get everything from there.
Yeah. And I guess it's like a lot of things, AI has accelerated such a pace. It's just finding the time in your day, no matter what role you're doing, to learn. Spend an hour, a couple of hours a week learning these things. Just go on YouTube, prompt, ChatGPT to learn about it, right? Yeah. Rather than just putting your head in the sand, try and learn it. And we're all in the same boat, really.
The amount of people that I know that I will speak to in sales and marketing that will say things like, I wish I started Google AdWords in 2005, or I wish I started really taking YouTube serious in 2010, or I wish I started really focusing on LinkedIn 2018, even though LinkedIn's been around for a while, but that's when it started to really, I really wish I started focusing on there. You don't want to be in a year's time thinking, I wish I started generative AI in 2026. Because as I said, I think we've only got a few months, and how we use it today is not going to be the same as how we're going to use it in a year's time. So yeah, don't live with regrets.
I'll join the training then and get cleaned up.
Yeah, feel free.
Brilliant. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks a
lot, Tom. Cheers.
Bye.